Part 7. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 61. Damn it! Such strong firepower. How many people did they get here? Cynthia's cheek was scratched by a fragment of blood, and blood slowly oozed out. Hide well and don't come out. She jumped out suddenly, rolled over, and 3 consecutive bullets hit the ground behind her, splashing up a large amount of dust. Cynthia got up and shot. Boom! There was an exclamation outside the door, and a black figure was hit and arrived in response. The gunfire just happened to slow down and stop. Sheriff Rio roared angrily, reached out, and fired several blind shots. 3 more muffled groans were heard outside the door, and it was obvious that someone had been hit again. Galen hid behind the sculpture and listened to the gunshots gradually becoming sparse. Cynthia and Sheriff Rio fought back while covering each other and cooperating, gradually suppressing the gunfire outside. I don't know how long it took, 10 minutes, or 15 minutes. The gunfire finally stopped. Is it over? He quietly poked his head out and took a look. The hall was a mess. The Rio police chief and his men were all injured. There were originally more than 10 policemen, but now only 2 were still alive, and the lives of the rest were unknown. The sergeant himself had been shot in the shoulder, his coat had been pulled off, and the white shirt underneath was half stained red. He was sitting on the ground beside the door, panting heavily. Seeing Garin looking over, the police chief turned away in shame. Black Panther was taking care of the gunshot wound on his left arm, holding a white bandage in his mouth to bandage himself. Cynthia and the remaining 2 subordinates gathered together and arranged the equipment without saying a word. Is Latin still alive? Cynthia asked lightly. I don't know. Maybe a subordinate took a knife and gently dug out the bullet in his thigh. His forehead was covered with cold sweat and blue veins. There was no answer in his mouth. The losses were heavy this time, but those boys should find ways to hide on their own. Cynthia quickly loaded the pistol with bullets, then took out a black shotgun from the backpack on one side, and fired it with a click. The bullet slid into the barrel of the gun. It's up to us now. Garin withdrew his gaze, hunched over and moved quietly toward the study. Grace wanted to follow, but he held her down and stayed in place. I can go alone, just stay where you are and don't move. He was not afraid of bullets that were troublesome for others. Even if the 10th golden ring blocked him and fired yesterday, it did not cause much damage. What he mainly finds troublesome is the 9th golden ring. He was sure that the real reason why the other party had an absolute advantage but had not rushed in directly until now was probably because they were afraid of him. He quietly walked towards the study room close to the corner, passed through the corridor, and entered the dark study room. Only then did Garin straighten up and stand up. There were several new footprints at the underground entrance to the study, and it was obvious that someone had followed in later. Bang bang. A gunfight broke out again in the lobby outside. Garin gently pressed the bullet hole in his lower abdomen, and it still hurt a little. While the injury has not completely healed, he can only play at 80% of his strength now. Facing the stronger 9th golden ring, he didn't want to confront him head-on. Now the antique of doom is only secondary. We must find a way to get out of here. I didn't expect Jin Huan to actually have the courage to confront the police brigade. He regretted coming to Yinsha Castle to explore. He is different from Talai Mercury and others. He only came here for the antiques of bad luck, not to find out the facts of the case. We have to find a way to get out of here safely. Boom. Suddenly there was a muffled sound from outside, and a violent explosion shook the entire castle. Go to hell. Damn you bastard, Cynthia's fierce voice came from the hall. Explosives apparently planted by her people went off. Garin felt a little more relaxed. With the threat of explosives, people outside should not dare to approach easily for the time being. After all, they didn't know how many explosives were buried around the castle. Wait a little longer, wait for the detectives to come out, and then leave together. Maybe there will be unexpected gains since we can't leave now. It's better to guard the entrance and wait for the detectives and others from the tower to come out. Maybe we can get the Antique of Doom, and then we can leave safely. Not too late. Garen is confident that if he wants to retreat, neither the Masters of Firearms nor Golden Rings can stop him. Walking to the entrance, Garen was about to sit down and rest when he suddenly felt a bit chilly near the entrance. Could it be? His expression suddenly became serious. Is it windy? He stretched out his hand to feel at the entrance carefully. You can vaguely feel the slightest breeze coming out of the entrance on your palms. It sure is windy. There must be other exits from this entrance. Garen's expression was shocked, and his face suddenly showed joy. He was about to stand up and head back down the hall to inform the others. When he turned around, he saw a dark figure blocking the door of the study, looking at him quietly. The shadow is wearing a black cloak and has a large gold ring on his left ear with the number 9 engraved on it. Judging from his body shape, he was a strong and well-proportioned man. He was covered with a black mask, revealing only a pair of clear blue eyes, like the sapphire phoenix eyes of a beautiful woman. Is this the underground entrance? The man asked in a low voice. His voice was very low, and his accent was very standard federal dialect. As expected of the detective in the tower, we couldn't find it after searching for so long, but he found it as soon as he came. It's really great. Garen turned around and listened carefully to the sounds on the other side of the hall. There was still a gun battle over there. It was obvious that this person had sneaked in on his own. Before he could speak, the man continued to speak. Kelly, I heard that you are an expert in identifying doomed antiques. That's good. Come down with me to have a look. If you can really prove your talent, I won't kill you. Garen's eyes were stunned. Not long after he told the detective in the tower, the people in Jinhuan knew about it. The man seemed to think he didn't believe it, so he reached out and pressed against the left wall. Click. A tiny crack suddenly appeared on the wall, like glass about to break. If you don't agree, this will be your fate. Garen glanced at the wall. He could do that level of cracking. The walls of the castle here were already in disrepair and the stone bricks were extremely fragile. What surprised him was that this 9th golden ring didn't treat him as a martial arts master at all, but thought he was just an ordinary expert who was just stronger. Using that move on the wall can scare ordinary people, but it has no deterrent effect on experts. Not to mention a warrior like him who is famous for his strength. Doesn't he know that I injured the 10th golden ring? This speculation flashed through Garen's mind. But the mouth answered. A master from the golden ring? As long as you guarantee my safety, I'll have no problem. He originally wanted to go down and have a look. You have good courage. Seeing that he was not afraid, the man's eyes flashed with appreciation. He nodded, walked to the entrance first, and walked down the stairs step by step. Come with me. No tricks. Even if you have some martial arts training, I can kill you in seconds. Garen nodded. Don't worry. I'm well aware of the situation. He followed the man down the stairs to the underground entrance. Ta-ta-ta. The two of them walked down the stone stairs and soon entered the entire underground space. The space is cylindrical, with a circle of black stone stairs attached to the wall, and a circle of white metal handrails on the edge of the ladder. Garen looked down through the armrest. Below are circles of stairs extending infinitely into the darkness, like threads on the inner wall of a cylinder, with a small black hole in the center that cannot be seen to the bottom. Looking up, the entrance was just a small hole. The entire spiral staircase rotates clockwise, round and round. What's strange is that these stairs, handrails, and surrounding walls are all very exquisitely decorated. The walls are carved with fine vine patterns, as are the handrails. The foot of the stone staircase is extremely smooth and thick, as if it were built from whole stones put together. The two of them walked one behind the other, with the man in the black cloak walking in front. The hem of his cloak lifted back from time to time, releasing a faint hint of elegant fragrance. Garin followed behind, and after smelling the fragrance, he felt refreshed. Here, if you don't pay attention to the scent of tea branches and vines, no matter how many people come in, they will only die. The man walked in front and whispered, "Don't leave me too far, otherwise I won't be able to take care of you." Okay, Garin nodded. The two of them walked down in circles, and the surroundings remained unchanged. If Garin hadn't occasionally looked up at the increasingly smaller entrance, he might have thought that he hadn't gone very far at all and was just spinning in circles. "I don't know how long I walked, maybe more than half an hour." Garin raised his head and looked up again. The entrance was completely invisible, and it was pitch black above. The only light source around is a small torch held by the ninth golden ring in front. The orange firelight illuminates 1 or 2 circles above and below. The temperature in the stairwell was getting lower and lower, and Garin saw that his breath was filled with white mist. "How long do we have to go? It's already very cold here." "No wonder you are wearing such thick clothes anyway. There are detectives and others exploring the way, so it is difficult to encounter danger. Now there is the ninth golden ring walking in front. It doesn't matter at all. Just treat him as if he's here for exploration. After all, he doesn't know the level of this person. In his current state, if he can avoid a direct conflict, it's better to hide him." "This staircase can never be finished," the cloaked man replied in a low voice. "This is an endless staircase originating from ancient Yinduo. Legend has it that it is a stone staircase leading to the world of the dead." "Do you believe it's really impossible to finish the journey?" Garin asked. The man stopped talking. The two people continued to move forward in silence. The walls were black, the stone steps on the ground were also black, only the handrails were white, and there was a hint of ominous paleness under the firelight. It was extremely quiet up and down the stairwell. The detectives who came in from the front didn't know what was going on, but there was no movement at all. I walked down silently. I don't know how long it took, but the monotonous stairs in front finally appeared in a different place. A stone table appeared on the left side of the wall, with a square fish tank placed on it. The fish tank is sealed and half filled with water. You can vaguely see fish in it. The cloaked man put down the torch and leaned over to take a look. The water in the fish tank was already dark green, like very viscous fecal water. The 3 or 4 dead goldfish inside were no longer golden red, but black and green. They had been floating on the water for who knows how long. "I didn't expect there to be goldfish here," Garin said in confusion. "It's such a deep place." "There are many places you can't think of," Ninth Golden Ring said calmly. "Hold up the torch and keep walking." Garin passed by the fish tank and couldn't help but take a second look before following closely. Since it's a fish tank, something used to raise goldfish. Why should it be sealed? This is a simple ritual in ancient times. Seal the life and let it slowly die inside until it completely rots and merges with the other materials inside. Even the soul is integrated. Wait until this time, then open the seal and eat everything inside, including the flesh, blood, and soul of the creatures inside. It is said that this is a ritual method that can lead to immortality, the man explained calmly. How disgusting! Garin was speechless. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 62. There are still many disgusting places in ancient Yinduo. That huge country that only fleetingly disappeared in history left behind many strange phenomena that are unimaginable and unexplainable, the ninth golden ring answered calmly. The two of them stopped talking for a while and continued to move forward. The temperature was getting colder and colder, and a thin layer of frost gradually appeared on the white metal handrails. The hot breath exhaled by the two people clearly formed 2 white lines, slowly dissipating in the air. "Be careful," the ninth golden ring suddenly said. Garin glanced at him in confusion, and then looked down the stairs. There was a policeman in black lying on the steps in front of him. His throat was shot through by a short black arrow, and he was half leaning against the wall motionless. Blood slowly flowed out from under the body, dripping into the endless darkness. The temperature was too low. His body temperature dropped too quickly. Ninth golden ring squatted down and checked the body. But the time of death should not exceed 20 minutes. It seems that the detectives are not far ahead. What are you going to do if you meet Detective Talai? Garen asked from behind. If he knew the truth, I wouldn't kill him either, Ninth golden ring replied calmly. The two of them walked forward past the police corpse, their crisp footsteps echoing in the silent space. Boom. Suddenly there was a gunshot in the darkness below. There was also the faint sound of someone screaming. Run, someone shouted. The ninth golden ring's expression changed, and he sped up and ran down. Garen hesitated for a moment, then started to jog as well. After a while, a group of detectives from the tower suddenly appeared on the stairs below. They stood on the steps and looked down in shock. Garen followed their gaze and looked forward. The steps in front were like thin flaps, flipping over to reveal the dark empty space below, and they were very regular. One of every 5 steps is a normal step, and all the rest are constantly turning over in a rhythmic manner. Visitors must jump forward, otherwise once they step on the overturned steps, they will immediately fall down, and their bodies will be stuck in the middle of the steps, and will be crushed to pieces by the overturned stone steps. One of Detective Talai's leather shoes had already been pinched in two. He, Bai Ying and the agency expert stood behind, and a young male policeman protected Miss Silan. Obviously, the police chief refused to come down because he had to mobilize the commanding police force, but Si Lan took the initiative to come down with the detective. At this time, the 5 detectives also heard footsteps coming from behind. Looking up, I saw Garen and a man in a black cloak walking down slowly, especially that man, who was wearing a black mask and wearing gold earrings with the number 9 engraved on them. It's from the golden ring. Bai Ying reacted quickly and drew his gun and pointed it at the 9th golden ring. Don't be nervous. 9th golden ring's expression remained unchanged as he looked at the people in front of him. I think our purpose should be the same. All to find out what the secret is in this underground entrance, right? What do you mean? The detective asked sullenly. Of course we are cooperating. You help me explore this cave, and I can personally provide you with a lot of valuable information. Don't worry, it will be over soon. The 9th golden ring's eyes were unusually calm, without any disturbance. Detective Talai pondered for a moment, not knowing what he was thinking. Okay, I promise you, he actually agreed. The rest of the people had expressions of disbelief, and even Garen behind him was a little stunned. The 9th golden ring is rumored to be a person who never breaks his promise. I believe your words. Talai Mercury ignored the expressions of others and said directly to the 9th golden ring. You know me quite well. This is natural. Then let's move on. 9th golden ring smiled and suddenly patted the wall on the left. Bang. The turning movement of the steps in front suddenly stopped and became completely motionless. Okay, keep going. He led Garen directly to the front. As they passed through the 5-person team, Bai Ying and Silan both looked extremely nervous. When they saw Garen following behind, they both looked obviously angry. Garen smiled bitterly at the two of them, shrugged helplessly, and happened to walk with everyone. The 9th golden ring in front of him didn't matter at all. He walked forward alone, neither fast nor slow. After a while, all he could see was the orange torch in his hand. How about we go back now? Garen suggested in a low voice. You can't run away. The 9th golden ring is very fast and silent. We can't run away. The detective in the tower looked calm. Let's go, follow. He was the first to follow, and the others behind him tried each other and had to follow. Garen and Bai Ying walked together and whispered to a few people about the situation above. The atmosphere in the team suddenly became much heavier. The current situation is very troublesome. Fortunately, this time we encountered the 9th Golden Circle, a relatively special existence in the entire Golden Circle organization. If the key was changed to someone else, it would be completely troublesome. Miss Sillon analyzed in a low voice. I just don't know what you think, sir. Don't worry about it. Sir, you will never do anything wrong. Just follow up, everyone. Bai Ying frowned. The agency expert was being supported by a small policeman. He was shivering from the cold and could not speak at all. The two of them stood close to the torch to keep warm, but it didn't help. But at this time, being coerced by the golden ring, he did not dare to say anything, so he had to grit his teeth and continue walking down. The group of people walked further down for who knows how long. The ninth golden ring in front of me flapped on the wall from time to time, as if it was very familiar with this place, and I didn't encounter any traps along the way. Soon, I finally saw the bottom. At the end of the stairs, there is a small circular space. There are 3 gray leather sofas placed on the black space. The sofas form a triangle and are covered with a thin layer of white frost. Not far from the clearing is a dark fireplace, and the black coal inside is also covered with a layer of hoarfrost. There is also a bookshelf, which is empty and empty. When he reached the last step, the ninth golden ring suddenly stopped and stood on the step without going down. He frowned, and his right hand that had been in the cloak slowly reached out, holding a black object between his fingers, and flicked it. The black thing immediately flew out and fell into the black open space ahead. Tisk tisk tisk. A series of dense arrows suddenly shot out from both sides, shooting the black objects into pieces, and a large number of black short arrows pierced into the ground densely. The ninth golden ring once again revealed a black object, followed by another hail of arrows. After doing this 3 times in a row, the holes in the walls on both sides were finally covered up automatically, and there was no more movement. The people behind him were dumbfounded. There were probably thousands of short arrows fired from behind, and the tips of each arrow were glowing with a hint of purple. The short arrows are shot. The ninth golden ring said calmly, squatting down, lifting his cloak, and found a white mouse in his left hand, and gently placed the white mouse on the black ground. The mouse squeaked and quickly crawled towards the sofa. After running a few steps, the mouse suddenly sank and slowly sank to the ground. The white rat squeaked like crazy, but it didn't help. Suddenly, a black thread lifted it up and flew back to the arms of the ninth golden ring. There is a very thin black thread tied to the tail of the mouse. You can't see it unless you look carefully. The ninth golden ring gently comforted the white mouse and stood up. Ahead is the malice swamp, one of the mechanisms in Gaian that punishes thieves. Only thieves and cowards with evil intentions will be trapped in the swamp. What is your purpose, Detective Tailai asked in a low voice. Of course it's that one. Ninth golden ring strode down the steps without looking back. Wait, the mechanical expert was about to stop him, but he was shocked to see the ninth golden ring standing firmly on the black ground. He had already walked a few steps to the 3 sofas. Garin stood in the team with a gloomy look on his face. The moment the ninth golden ring walked to the sofa, he suddenly felt a faint warmth slowly seeping from the skin of his body into his body. That was potential, a very small amount of potential. Snapped. The ninth golden ring stood in the middle of the sofa. He didn't know what he did, but the black earth made a slow clicking sound. On the ground in front of the fireplace, a gray-white stone pillar slowly rose. The stone pillar platform is cylindrical, with 4 owl sculptures carved around it. There is actually a black shell brick book placed on the table. A wave of fluctuation finally appeared in the eyes of the ninth golden ring. He strode towards the gray-white stone platform and reached out to grab the black book. Boom! There was a gunshot, and a smoking hole suddenly appeared on the ground beneath his feet. The ninth golden ring stopped in place and turned to look at the crowd. What are you doing? Bai Ying stood in front of Detective Mercury in the tower with his gun raised, his expression serious. But it wasn't him who spoke. The detective stared at the ninth golden ring calmly. If I'm not wrong, that book is your ultimate goal, right? Indeed, the other party nodded happily. I am very grateful to you for finding this underground entrance for us. But the way of thanking you is that I will let you go this time. Originally we were in a hostile position. I should just kill you and solve the problem for the organization. Trouble. You should understand. You can't kill us, the detective smiled. The mechanism here is no joke. If I guess correctly, that book is the legendary Silent Book. Such a treasure gives you a golden ring, just like a lion growing wings, and the consequences will be disastrous. This book is not for organizations. The ninth golden ring smiled, and his body suddenly rushed forward, swinging abruptly from side to side, grabbing the book and jumping on the spot. Like a black bat, it flew up and hung by the stairs above, and climbed up the stone stairs above everyone. Don't move, Detective Tailai suddenly stopped Bai Ying, who was about to make a move. At this time, densely packed black spikes suddenly protruded from the black earth, like a forest of thorns, and countless holes were suddenly pierced into the sofa. Bai Ying was so frightened that he broke into a cold sweat. The detective then looked at the mechanism expert on one side. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 63. There is no way. The expert's face turned pale with coldness, and he shook his head. It's because I moved slowly, and the force required to trigger this mechanism is a bit greater. He lowered his head and looked at the stone bricks at his feet. Kelly is missing, Miss Sillen suddenly said urgently. It doesn't matter. No matter which one of them gets the book, Mr. Kelly is unlikely to be in danger. They all need Kelly to identify the authenticity. The detective shook his head. Which one? Bai Ying put down his gun. Behind us, behind the ninth golden ring, there are people following us. The detective in the tower whispered. Let's go up. The temperature here is too low, we can't hold on for long. Then what you said to the ninth golden ring just now was intentional. Of course. It's a pity that the ninth shot is a bit late. A smile appeared on the detective's face. On the spiral steps, among the circles of stone steps, two black figures ran quickly one after another and chased each other. A dark figure in front held a person in his arms, and the person being held was Garen, who was dressed in black. The person leading him to run quickly was the ninth golden ring who had left earlier. His cloak was flying behind him, floating upwards like a black cloud. The cloak almost completely covered Galleon. Boom! A bullet hole suddenly appeared in the stone brick in front of the ninth golden ring. The black figure behind held two double guns in his hands. He climbed over the handrail and landed directly in front of the ninth golden ring. My guess is correct. Ninth, you really want to take the silent book for yourself? The man sneered and stood in front of them. His sinister male face slightly lowered his head and stared at the two of them. It's you. The ninth golden ring slowly put Garen down. The organization is so worried about me that it sent you to monitor me. It's a pity. I didn't want to kill anyone. We have worked together for many years, and I didn't want to kill you, but it's a pity that you took the initiative to betray me. The gold ring hanging on the man's left ear has the number 8, which is actually one higher than the ninth gold ring. The two of them sneered at the same time, stopped talking, and threw themselves together. There was no obvious sound as the two men struggled together, like two pieces of black cloth rotating and flowing against each other. There was only the hissing sound of the friction of the cloth. Keep moving and jumping quickly on the stairs. Garen stood on the stairs at the back, watching the two of them fight for their lives without blinking. The reason why he was willing to be held hostage by the ninth golden ring just now was because he wanted to feel the source of the potential aura up close. Sure enough, he determined that the source of potential was the black shell book. And like the black jade plate, it is of a slowly leaking type, rather than being sucked all in one breath. Should we wait until they decide the winner and then snatch the book, or should we leave here immediately and wait for any of them to come to us with the book for appraisal? Garin was a little undecided. If he waits for the other party to come to him with a book for identification, if the golden ring has other ways to identify authenticity, then this may not be possible. And if you want to snatch the book directly? He didn't want to get too involved in the affairs of the Golden Circle. Pretending to be Mr. Kelly was just to find the ill-fated antiques. He would put himself in crisis by snatching it like this, especially since the Golden Circle already knew his identity as Galleon. This may affect family members. Go on, suddenly a hurried voice came. Before Garin could respond, Ju saw the silent book smashing towards him. He hurriedly caught the book. Suddenly a faint warmth flowed from the book into his body, and the potential points in his field of vision began to grow slowly and steadily. I'll put the book with you first. No matter who of us wins, we have to come to you for appraisal, the voice of the ninth golden ring came over. After saying that, the two of them simply ignored the galleons and continued fighting lower and lower. After a while, they fell to the lower 3 floors. It seems I have to stay here for the time being. Garin is holding the book. The cover of the silent book is dark with a white eye drawn in the middle. He gently opened the pages of the book, and the outer cover was actually made of stone. After turning the first page, Garin's pupils suddenly shrank. There is a picture clearly drawn on the black page. There was a person on the screen, a naked man. What's strange is that the back of this man's head is connected to the body of a maggot, like a long milky white hose, with one person and one insect sharing one head. The body of the maggot behind him was white, and it dragged down to the thigh, and it was still slowly squirming. Creep, Garin closed his eyes and shook his head. When he opened his eyes again, the dynamic feeling on the screen suddenly disappeared. This strange man's green eyes were staring at him, as if he was still alive. It gives people a faint feeling of dizziness. Garin finally regained his composure and was about to continue turning back when suddenly a black shadow flashed in front of him. Give it to me, a strong force grabbed the silent book and wanted to snatch it away. Suddenly, another dark figure rushed over, grabbing the silent book with one hand and exerting force at the same time. Garin was stunned, and unconsciously exerted force on his hands, and the book suddenly tore. I can't get it, and you can't get it either, the ninth golden ring roared in a weak voice. The silent book was completely shattered in an instant under the power of 3 people. With a crash, countless pages flew up. The ninth golden ring held a short sword in his hand and chopped all the pages into pieces with a few clicks of his left hand. Yang, a flame suddenly ignited in the air. All the fragments of the pages were immediately set on fire. Number 9, you're crazy, the 8th golden ring wanted to stop him, but he was still a step too slow. He just punched the number 9 until he stuck to the wall and slowly slid down. Garin didn't want to get involved in the internal struggle of the Golden Circle, but he was just a little sorry that the silent book was torn up and burned. But since you can find it the first time, you can probably find it the second time. Although he felt regretful, he still took 2 steps back and watched the 2 of them get into a ball again and quickly leave the stairs. It's really a mess. Garin was speechless. But at least I gained something. I was able to discover the picture of my time travel. If the content in that book is true, then I should be considered a lucky survivor. Specific case time and enough luck. Things have developed to this point, and the changes are beyond anyone's expectations. Garin's original intention is no longer there, the antiques of misfortune have not been collected, but he has a grudge with the 10th golden ring. He looked at the 9th golden ring and the 8th golden ring again. The 8th golden ring was standing on the steps, his expression extremely ugly. On the stairs below, the 9th golden ring holds a black stone in its hand, which turns out to be the white eye on the cover of the silent book. Give me the thing, 8th said gloomily, stretching out his hand. This is a legendary rune with mysterious power. Do you think I will give it to you? 9th sneered. I have been planning for so long and finally got it. Both of them had faint blood stains on their bodies. Fortunately, there was nothing unusual about the eighth one, but the ninth golden ring had blood bleeding from the corner of his mouth, obviously suffering from internal injuries. Garen looked at the center of the fight between the two, and suddenly his heart moved. He felt that the potential in the air did not disappear as the books were smashed and burned. Is that stone working? His eyes slowly fell on the white eye stone that the two men were fighting for. That book just records some cult myths and legends. The real value is the stone. Do you think I don't know that? Ninth golden ring sneered. Although I don't know what this thing does, once it's in my hands, don't even think about taking it out again. Garen knew. If you don't leave at this time, you may be completely involved in the internal struggle of Jinhuan. The more you know, the more trouble you will have. While the two of them were talking, he moved back slowly and quietly, and slowly retreated to the top of the stairs. Although the antique of doom is very precious, if he is really involved in the internal fight of the Golden Circle, he will be in trouble. After all, it's not like he was hiding his identity when he was fighting the 10th golden ring. Unexpectedly, he had just taken a few steps when the 9th golden ring below immediately moved. He suddenly moved and turned into a black shadow and rushed towards the stairs above. The 8th golden ring behind him hurriedly followed, and the two of them passed by Garen. Ninth's face turned pale, and it was obvious that he could no longer hold on any longer. Garen's eyes narrowed. To be honest, he still had a good impression of the 9th golden ring. From the beginning to the end, this person never really harmed him. Instead, he had been protecting him since he entered the cave. At this moment, when the 8th passed by Garen, his size was slightly larger, and he was blocked by Garen's size, and his speed suddenly slowed down a bit. Go away, Baba was angry and slapped Garen with a slap. His 5 fingers were blue, and he had obviously practiced some highly poisonous technique. When he slapped it with his palm, a pungent fishy smell immediately hit him. Although galleons are not as fast as them, they can completely resist them at such a close distance. He never wanted to take action because he didn't want to cause trouble and get involved in Jinhuan's internal fight. But now the other party is obviously going to slap him to death. My heart immediately became a little angry. You're looking for death, he growled, raised his right arm and grabbed it forward. Hiss. The arm instantly swelled and bulged, fully doubling in size. The veins and muscles were tangled and knotted, and they swelled to half a meter in diameter, which was not like a human hand at all. He grabbed it with one palm and met No 8's blue palm head on. Like a bear's paw versus a child's palm. Bang! The two were instantly separated. The 8th golden ring actually used his other hand to grab the 9th one and swung it backwards to cushion it. The 9th golden ring was thrown directly to Garen. Here's the thing for you. Let's go. The 9th golden ring collided with Garen, put his hand into Garen's arms and made a gesture of stuffing something, then pushed him hard and yelled, but he fell down the stairs. Garen was shocked. The 9th golden ring didn't give him anything at all. He shouted like this, obviously trying to mislead the 8th golden ring. When he looked up, he saw that the 8th golden ring had a gloomy expression, and it looked like a black cloud. He didn't give me anything, Garen yelled. I'll know after I kill you, 8th sneered. Damn it, Garen was also furious. Originally, he had never wanted to get entangled with Jinhuan, but now he was inexplicably involved in this matter. You idiot. There is an exit down there. That guy just wants me to hold you back and run away. Do you think his injuries are that serious? The two collided violently, and there were 2 muffled bangs. Garen stayed put, but the 8th golden ring grunted, took a few steps back and stood on the steps. Sure enough, it's the same as the information said, it's very powerful. The 8th golden ring's expression changed slightly, and his left hand was trembling slightly behind his back, but his expression remained calm on the surface. That damn guy actually framed me. I don't have any necessary feud with you, golden ring. Let's deal with that guy first, and then we will know where the things are, Garen said in a low voice, enduring the sting in his palm. He used a partial Bioun secret technique. His skin was too rough and his flesh was thick, so he was not poisoned. He just felt sore, numb, swollen, and painful in his palms, which was a bit uncomfortable. Do you think I will believe you? Eighth said coldly. What are you afraid of if I go with you? Garen was not as angry as usual now. I won't ask for anything, and I can help you identify the authenticity when the time comes. Anyway, you also know my identity, and there is no way I can run away. Fall. Even if I run away, my family and teachers will still be there, so why are you worried? Eighth stared at Garen for a while and finally let go. Okay. I believe you once. You have to hurry up, that guy definitely knew there was an exit below and that's why he fell like this, Garen said harshly. This was the first time since his debut that he had suffered such a big secret loss. He turned around and ran downstairs. I know it without you having to tell me. The eighth one turned around and jumped down, following closely. The two of them disappeared into the darkness in a short while. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 64. Garen's current plan is to wait until he gets the stone eye and use the excuse that it will take some time to identify it. He can at least keep it in his hands for a while, which can be regarded as a way to absorb the potential. In order to clear away the suspicion, he took the initiative to ask Eighth to go with him to hunt down the ninth golden ring, also because the other party deliberately framed him in the last moment. No matter what, the ninth golden ring must be found to eliminate the suspicion. But he also knew that even if the suspicion was cleared, number 8 might not let him go. Perhaps his identification was a protective measure, but not safe enough. It's best if both of us are injured and die together. Garen ran down quickly, a trace of evil flashed in his eyes. The eighth golden ring followed closely behind him, holding a torch with a small flame in his hand, and carefully blocked it with his cloak to prevent the fire from extinguishing. The distance between the two of them was almost 1 meter, and with such a little light, they could barely see the front and back clearly. Not long after, a half-open white stone door suddenly appeared on the wall of the front staircase. Looking through the gap, it was dark inside. Waves of cool wind blew out from inside. Garen quickly stopped and stood at the door to take a breath. It's the living wind. They should have left from here. The eighth golden ring has now thought about it clearly, and clearly knows that he has been deceived. At this time, without Garan having to say anything, he takes the lead in opening the stone door and walking in. Garen's eyes flickered and he followed in. Inside the stone gate was an empty, small stone chamber. The ground was covered with a thick layer of dust. On the dust, you could clearly see a dense row of footprints walking forward until they disappeared on the right wall. The eighth golden ring walked over and groped on the wall, but couldn't find the mechanism at all. Damn it, he punched the wall with a bang. There is still wind. There must be an outlet, Garen said calmly. Look where the wind outlet is. Eighth's eyes lit up, he just didn't expect it because of his impatience. After being reminded at this time, I immediately started searching for the air outlet. Garen stood aside and didn't move, just watching him quietly checking around. What is the function of that stone? Do you know about the golden ring? Hey, aren't you afraid that if you know too much, you will die faster? Baba smiled strangely while groping. Suddenly he seemed to touch a mechanism and gently pressed against the wall. With a click, a small door suddenly flipped out of the wall. The moment the small door flipped out, a short sword stabbed the eighth golden ring silently. Clang! The short sword and the barrel of the eighth pistol collided hard. Eighth took a big step back, raised his gun and shot. Bang 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 bang. After 4 consecutive shots, there was no movement in the darkness inside the small door. Run away, chase, Eighth roared, but his body did not move and stood still. He just looked at Garin, who was standing aside, meaning to let him go in first. "Anyway, I'm not worried if something is lost," Garin sneered. "His strength is not as good as the two of them, and because he is injured and can only perform 80%, it is even less likely that he can beat them. If you rush in now, it's obvious that you can't adapt to that kind of dark place. Although it is darker outside, it is not as bright as inside the small door. At least the 8th golden ring still has a torch with sparks in its hand." For a moment, the two stood in a stalemate in the stone room. 8th knew that he couldn't urge Galleon no matter what, but he didn't dare to rush in rashly. "If you delay any longer, everyone will be gone," Garin said coldly. The 8th golden ring glared at him fiercely, gritted his teeth, took out one of the two pistols, and threw it into the small door. The pistol spun and slid into the darkness. Boom! There was a gunshot, and a small ball of red fire suddenly exploded in the darkness, and the pistol actually exploded. At the same time, there was a faint groan, followed by some staggering footsteps. The 8th golden ring sneered and rushed in without saying a word. He used his cloak to protect his body and rushed through the flames before disappearing. Garin did not follow. He had just seen clearly that the 8th golden ring was a shot that hit the butt of the previous pistol. The butt was actually filled with explosives and exploded with one shot, forming a small explosive bag. When it exploded in such a small space, although the explosive force was very weak, the sound alone would make most people's ears deafened. The 9th golden ring must have been shocked. That's why the 8th golden ring had no time to deal with Galleon and rushed in to chase him. "We must kill 9th before he recovers." Standing where he was, Garin knew that he had nothing to do. He originally meant not to get involved, but now the two people in front were fighting among themselves. Now is the time to leave. Just as he was about to turn around and leave, he suddenly felt a familiar airflow slowly penetrate his skin from the air. This is potential, he looked around in shock. There was no firelight, the stone room was dark, and he couldn't see anything clearly. Garin slowly walked along the wall, and soon walked into the place where the potential was the strongest. He slowly squatted down in the corner of the wall, where a small piece of black cloth was nailed to the ground, covering something on the ground. Because it was too dark and it was in a corner, neither 8th nor Garin could see it just now, and the potential emission was too weak, so Garin didn't pay attention just now. Now that he had calmed down, he realized that in addition to the black jade plate, there was also such potential slowly entering his body. Could it be? Garin's heart skipped a beat and he gently opened the black cloth. A white stone suddenly appeared below. The stone was like a fish-shaped human eye, lying quietly on the dark ground. Garin picked it up and touched it. Although he couldn't see clearly, he immediately knew that this was the source center of the potential. Judging from the shape, it should be the white eye stone. If I hadn't had the potential to help with the search, no one else would have found the things here. Garin hurriedly picked up the white eyes and put them in his arms. Standing up, he turned around and walked out of the entrance. The smell of torch smoke lingered faintly in the air, and it was still very strong. It should be the detectives who just passed by. Standing at the entrance of the stone gate, Garin looked back behind him, and a sneer suddenly appeared on his face. "One deliberately framed me, and the other just wanted to kill me. Neither of them are good people. Unfortunately, if I were stronger, I could kill them. But I can't make it so easy for them." He touched the white eye stone in his coat pocket, his eyes thoughtful. At the same time, he ran up quickly. A few minutes later, a black shadow suddenly appeared from the small door in the stone room. The shadow did not use any lighting method, but rushed directly to the corner, lifted the black cloth on the ground and touched it with his hands. Not finding anything, the shadow was stunned, and hurriedly touched around again, but it was still empty. "That Kelly," he gritted his teeth. There were faint footsteps coming from behind again, and the black shadow immediately stood up and rushed out of the door quickly. Just as he rushed out of the door, he heard a strong wind coming from the right, and a figure rushed towards him from the side. Bang! The two of them separated suddenly, and the black shadow was hit hard against the door, and the entire wall shook slightly. Damn it, he continued to roll and rolled to the ground to avoid it. The stone door frame behind him was suddenly hit by the second punch with a muffled bang. A large amount of gravel fell from the wall with a crashing sound. The ninth golden ring, you asked for this, Garen's voice came from the darkness. How dare you frame this on me? Do you really think I dare not touch you? The ninth golden ring knelt down and leaned on the handrail of the stairs to support his body. His face was pale, and red lines oozed from his ears, mouth, and nostrils, and they were all covered with thin bloodshot threads. He didn't follow the hard Qigong route to begin with. First he was injured by the eighth golden ring, and now he was hit by the sneak attack. For a moment, I felt like my stomach was churning, and my head was slightly dizzy. Where are the things? He asked in a tone of pain. Of course it's at my place, Garen sneered. I will hand it over to the people of the Golden Circle, which will help ease the bad relationship with the Golden Circle. It will also be handed over to the eighth Golden Circle in a while. Idiot Jeju suddenly forced a laugh, stood up, and was about to continue talking when he suddenly opened his mouth and vomited a large mouthful of blood. A thick smell of blood suddenly filled the air. At this moment, another black shadow rushed out of the stone room and landed at the door. It is the eighth golden ring. He held a small torch with sparks in his hand, which could barely illuminate a small area around him. Under the red light of Mars, the faces of the three people seemed to be looming red. Is the thing really at your place? The eighth golden ring looked at Garen. Give it to me, he stretched out his hand. I can give you something, but I haven't identified it yet. I think only I can identify whether this thing is genuine or not, and it will take a long time. You should know it. Garen did not hesitate. He knew that he could not keep this thing now. Although he was very unhappy with the other party's tone, he still raised his hand and threw the white stone eye over. The latter took it, inspected it, and nodded with satisfaction. It's okay, I misunderstood you just now. This thing really has no meaning to you, and you have no reason to snatch it. I will probably trouble you about the appraisal in the future. The eighth golden ring got the thing, and his tone suddenly softened. Maybe there will be other things I need to trouble you with in the future. Everything in the past was all a misunderstanding. I just like to identify strange and weird things. In fact, I also hope that the good things you receive from Jinhuan can be identified by me. Garen directly stated his plan. The eighth golden ring rolled his eyes. The organization has always attached great importance to and protected talented people. In the past, the people below were ignorant and caused you a lot of trouble. It was indeed our fault. But you also know that after all, you are on the side of Mercury in the tower. Many people in the organization are dissatisfied with this. And if Kelly can join our Golden Circle, everything will no longer be a problem. He just tried Galen's strength, which is indeed extraordinary. It happened that the ninth Golden Circle rebelled, and the top 10 Jinhuan had to add new members, and he suddenly had an idea. After a conversation between the two, they temporarily put aside the seriously injured ninth golden ring. Jeju was also happy to rest for a while, as his body had already been unable to hold on for a long time. What good will joining the Golden Circle do to me? Garen asked in a low voice. Although we are not a secret military organization, we are not a pure military organization. The eighth Golden Circle smiled proudly. In fact, the true nature of our Golden Circle is also known to the detectives in the tower, but I didn't tell you. He after a pause, Kelly, you think we have power, so why do we spend so much time collecting all kinds of jewelry and antiques? Garen narrowed his eyes. Since we collect it, someone must need it. Then what kind of person would like such stolen antiques that are not easy to sell? To be honest, these things are just small things that are older. At most, they have some historical stories, the eighth golden ring continued to prompt. Garen was shocked. It's a noble, he blurted out. Correct, the eighth golden ring chuckled. The golden ring does not represent ordinary dark forces. Our backstage is filled with high-ranking figures. Strength is only the weakest part of us, and what is truly powerful is the power. Joining us will only benefit you and not bring any harm. Garen felt relieved, knowing that there was no problem. Those words just now were meant for the eighth golden ring. He has relatives and teachers at home, so he is not alone. Behind the scenes, whether it is the manlet and company or the teacher Fei Baiun's status and influence, although Jin Huan is not afraid, he will not provoke him for no reason. As long as there is no conflict of interest, everything will be easy. No wonder the detective has always had trouble with you. It turns out that the influence of the golden ring is so strong, he murmured. We happen to need an expert appraiser who can identify ancient and rare things. This is your chance. The eighth golden ring is more and more satisfied with his idea. Regardless of Garen's strength, background, and talents, he is what the organization needs. As long as he can be brought in, the previous minor conflict can be easily resolved. Aren't they just going to kill a few people? It's not like the top 20 gold rings, the ones in the following rankings can get as much as they want. These days, professional and rare talents are the most important resource. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 65. Take your time, let's settle the current matter first. Garen looked at the ninth golden ring aside, and the latter's expression suddenly tightened. The eighth golden ring sneered, rushed over, and pointed his index finger. Laugh. Well. The ninth golden ring groaned, and a blood hole instantly appeared in his chest. With a bang, his whole body flew out of the handrail and fell into the dark void in the middle of the stairs. Let's go. The eighth golden ring turned and walked up without looking down. We've got what we asked for. Once we hand it over, it won't be our business. The appraisal will be discussed later. Garen looked down at the direction where the ninth golden ring fell. It was so dark that he couldn't see anything. He quickly followed the eighth golden ring up. By the way, have you got another clue about the scent of the tea vine? Why haven't I seen the tea vine? He recalled the weirdness of Yinsha Castle and asked suddenly. Tea branch vine? That thing is very effective in causing hallucinations and killing people. Our people have collected them all. The only thing left is the crazy woman who has some, but not much, the eighth golden ring said casually. Okay, I'll go up and lead the people to retreat first, and then you go up, so as to avoid the suspicion of Mercury in the tower. If you join us and become the ninth golden circle, this identity will not be bad as a cover. Okay, Garen nodded. Standing still, watching the eighth golden ring speed up, disappear into the darkness quickly. He looked back at the darkness behind him. The stairs extended downwards, as if they could lead all the way to the bottomless abyss. The entire staircase was eerily quiet. Why is the ninth golden ring so eager to grab things? He still had doubts in his heart, but unfortunately the ninth golden ring was dead. It was almost impossible to survive after falling from such a high place and being seriously injured. Shaking his head, Garen accelerated and ran up. Bottom of stairs. The ninth golden ring was lying on his back on the ground, with countless spikes from the ground mechanism piercing his body. He lay on his back with his eyes wide open, and he was completely out of breath. The blood slowly seeped into the black soil below and slowly solidified. In the afternoon, the Yinsha Castle glows slightly red under the faint sunset light. On the grass of the castle, a few sparse police officers held up their guns and inspected the bodies of their teammates. Each of them looked pale, some cursed in a low voice, and some even choked faintly. The sheriff's arm was wrapped in white gauze, and he stood with Detective Taileye with an ugly expression. The White Eagle and Black Panthers were also there, and Grace stood with gallant Cynthia. Cynthia's face wasn't too bad. Her men didn't suffer too many casualties, and the losses were still bearable. Garin stood aside, watching the group of detectives in front discussing something in low voices, and he didn't bother to listen. The biggest gain this time is to connect with Jin Huan. If everything goes well, at least you don't have to worry about your family being threatened. My visit this time basically had no effect. Unfortunately. Garin whispered, originally, I planned to come here and follow the detective to figure out the secret of Yinsha Castle and see if I could get some antiques or something. Now it seems that I am overthinking it. Next time you run around, could you please tell me in advance, Cynthia said angrily. Her face and body were dirty, but miraculously she was not injured. She was not injured in that fierce gun battle, which showed her superhuman combat qualities. I got it. Garin smiled and said no more. Okay, it's time for us to go back. This situation is not the time for us to stay. He walked directly towards the group of detectives in the tower in front. After simply saying goodbye to a few people, Garin took Grace and Cynthia and rushed to Konu Town along with the rest of the people who came with him. Arriving back to Konu Town in the evening and before dark, Garin got into Grace's car and headed for the city. Back in the city, life gradually returned to calm. Garin completely forgot about the Yinsha Castle. In addition to reading in the library every day, he went to the old man to learn appraisal knowledge. At the same time, he was also waiting for the boss of Manlet & Company to find time to meet him. A few weeks later, in the library, surrounded by bookshelves, Garin was sitting in a small room, leaning against a red sofa, holding a magazine-sized black hardcover book in his hand and flipping through it, looking focused. There was a cup of black coffee on the black table in front of him, and the coffee was completely out of steam. The silent book, on the red sofa on the right side, a beautiful light blonde girl sat crookedly, with a black hairband in the middle of her long hair. The black silk skirt on her body tightly highlights her slender waist. There are dark red flowers on the skirt, and the black and red colors give it an elegant and tranquil temperament. The length of the skirt also just covers the knees, not too long nor too short. Why do you suddenly want to look up information about this book? The girl was Feinstein, who had just returned from Manroland the day before yesterday, and then contacted Garin to come out for a get-together. I heard this name some time ago, and I feel very curious. It seems that this book is very mysterious. Garin shrugged, and it was definitely impossible to tell the truth. Regarding this information, you really asked the right person. The girl's eyes curled up, showing that she was in a good mood. The Silent Book is an ancient book that records mysterious knowledge in legend. The most mysterious and cruel civilization in ancient times, the ancient Yinduo civilization, is the birthplace of the Silent Book. Well, there are also a few occult books here that I want to read. I'll take you to look through them together. Feinstein stood up, patted her butt. Follow me. Come. Garin quickly put down his book and followed her out of the small room. Feinstein whispered a few words to a maid girl at the door of the room. The latter nodded and started to lead the way. The three of them passed through several connected study rooms and soon walked in from a small door on the left. Inside the door is a wooden staircase leading down, which is a bit dark. The ground is covered with a thick black blanket, and there is no sound when you step on it. Garin followed Feinstein and the maid down the 3 flights of stairs, opened several doors in succession, and unlocked a series of large locks. Finally we came to a very spacious and deserted underground library. The library is a rectangular hall, dark and dark. There are more than 10 rows of black wooden bookshelves from left to right, but most of them are empty bookshelves. There was no one inside, and it was deserted. After Feinstein waved off the maid girl, she happily led Garin towards the bookshelf at the right end. The books here are all old ancient books, and some of them are about occult science, but you need to find them yourself. Garin nodded and sniffed. There was a faint musty smell in the air. Without saying a word, the two simply rolled up their sleeves and started looking through ancient books. There are very few books on the bookshelf, and even if there are books, they have accumulated a lot of dust. When you take them down, you will bring out a big cloud of white dust, which is very choking. Feinstein really didn't care at all, and started looking for occult books with Garin with great interest. Search the bookshelf on the right to find the bookshelf on the left. The two of them did find a few occult books, but at first glance they were just nonsense. The contents were just enough to be used as storybooks for children. Many of the books here are the property left by my friend's ancestors. He sorted out most of them, and there are still many left that have not been sorted out. Later, due to family reasons, these books were not all sorted out, and they were almost destroyed. It was forgotten here. If you hadn't asked about it today, I might not have remembered this place. Ahem, Feinstein whispered. At the same time, he pulled out a gray book and patted the dust on it vigorously. A puff of white dust suddenly spread out, and the girl was choked and coughed repeatedly. Don't be in a hurry, just look for it slowly, Garin smiled, showing no sign of impatience. The firelight on the wall danced slowly, and time passed by in the dim hall. I don't know how long it took, but suddenly a muffled sound came from the left corner. A thick cloud of dust rose high. Ahem. Ahem. I'm so choked. Why did it all fall down? Feinstein complained as she walked out from the bookshelf. Her whole body was dusty. The black silk skirt was no longer pure black, and the surface was completely covered with dust. There was a layer of white dust on it, making it look very miserable. Huh, Garin suddenly let out a soft sigh. There is actually a book here. He was standing not far from the girl. After the bookshelf was knocked down, he suddenly saw a book rolling down from the top of the bookshelf. Book. He quickly walked over and picked it up. Gently pat the dust on the book. The book is all black, with a gold necklace on the cover and the author's name below, Philip Jeffs. Garin opened it gently. The pages of the book were light yellow. It could be seen that it was originally supposed to be white, but it took too long and turned into light yellow. There is a sentence recorded on the first page. Dedicated to the scholar who has spent his life in pursuit of arcane knowledge. Turn to the second page and there is a concise table of contents. There are only 3 sections: nightmare, white, and ritual. There are many detailed labels under each small section, followed by page numbers. What is this? Feinstein came over and asked. Gold necklace. Why doesn't this book have a title? No book title. Garin was stunned. There really is no title for the book. There are 2 situations like this. One is that this is a private book and is not managed by the National Bibliography Bureau. Not writing the title is a way to avoid it. Such a book will be considered to be a handwritten diary or something like that. Feinstein is well informed and explained, and the other kind. When she mentioned this kind, her face became serious. The other type is the so-called banned books. They contain forbidden content, and not writing the title is also to avoid the Bibliographic Bureau. This is because books of this type have been banned by the Bibliographic Bureau. Most of these books only have the author's signature. Forbidden book. Garin suddenly became interested and flipped through it casually. The entire book is filled with intricate drawings and strangely shaped words that are incomprehensible. Come on, let's go over there and sit down and read. This book must be a banned book. I have never seen a real banned book. Feinstein also became more interested. The two came to a mahogany table in the library, pulled out the chairs, wiped them clean, and then sat down. The lamp on the table had been lit by the maid. The light was a little dim, but it did not affect reading. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 66. Putting the book on the table, Garin continued to turn from the page he just turned to. The yellowed paper surface is slightly rough and very hard. Galleon just turned it over slightly, and the corner of the paper broke off, like a very thin template. "Be careful, this book is too old, it must be a book from hundreds of years ago," Feinstein whispered to the side. "New." Garin moved softer. "Turn to the 5th page, still the table of contents." Garin simply skipped it and turned to the main text. "I would like to thank my friend, Lady Liana. Without her careful correction and funding, this book may not have been published." The back of this line is a little blurry, as if it has been soaked in water. Galen frowned and turned back. The text was actually filled with black twisted letters like tadpoles. He knew every word on it, but when arranged and combined, it became a completely garbled text without any meaning. Is it a special encoding? It needs to be decrypted before the real content can be read. Galen frowned and continued to flip through. All the contents were the same. It should be that many people will encrypt slightly important content with their own passwords. Feinstein nodded and watched together. "What should we do?" Garin flipped through it at random. From beginning to end, he couldn't understand a single paragraph. He could only barely read some patterns similar to engineering design drawings. "I remember that my friend's grandfather once used an encryption method. I still remember it. Let me decompile it and have a look." Feinstein grabbed the book enthusiastically, took out a pen and paper and began to decipher it. Garin was pushed aside speechlessly, and even his seat was taken away by this girl. Relaxing and happy, Garin whispered in his heart, taking 2 steps back with a smile on his face, quietly admiring Feinstein's beautiful posture. About 10 minutes later. "Garin, come on, I know what this book is about," the girl suddenly said loudly. Garin quickly leaned over and immediately smelled a fresh girl's body fragrance. He involuntarily breathed harder and took a deep breath. But seeing Feinstein's focused profile, he immediately stopped and looked at the table. There is a piece of white paper beside the book on the table. A short paragraph of text has been written on it, which has been decompiled. "I probably know what this book is about," Feinstein said a little excitedly. She turned to the front table of contents and pointed at the pages. "This book is divided into 3 parts, Nightmare, White, and Ritual. These 3 parts respectively correspond to the author's first encounter with strange events, the boring and difficult search in the middle, and the last trace of clues that he barely found. Overall, this book is this travel diary is a real travel diary in search of legends and stories." "Travel notes? Does it really record the author's encounter with mysterious events?" Garin asked doubtfully. "This was not mentioned, but the author recorded that he did not know when it started, and he kept having a recurring nightmare. In order to unravel the source of this nightmare and save himself from suffering, he embarked on a journey to find the reason. If it's just a nightmare, it can't really be called a mysterious incident. However, at the end of the book, the author seems to have learned something, and his words are a little unclear, as if he is tabooing something." Feinstein frowned slightly. Wrinkled. "What are you taboo about?" Garin narrowed his eyes. "Can you find the author's information?" "No, it is mentioned in the book that when the author arrives at a place, after coming out, the content behind it begins to be unclear and changes," Feinstein explained. "What is that place?" "Low Imperial Library." Garin frowned, picked up the book and flipped through it casually. "Look at the very back, there seems to be something," Feinstein said urgently. Garin quickly turned to the last page, and suddenly a piece of white paper caught in the gap in the shell fell out. The white paper fell out of the middle layer of the hard shell cover. If it hadn't been for a long time, the hard shell had cracked and formed layers, and I would have had to use a knife to cut open the middle layer to get it out. Feinstein quickly picked it up and unfolded it. There is a line of words written on it, 6 meters deep under the third tree at number 174, Navi's Julian Mountain. I put things there. Charlie. This is a message. It has obviously not been discovered, otherwise such a message would definitely not be still in the book." Feinstein suddenly became excited. "We can go and have a look." Maybe we can find something. Navies, where is it? Garen had never heard of this place name. Yushan is a large province on the edge of the Federation. The provincial capital is Navies. Yushan is a very poor province with barren land and few resources and minerals. It has almost no advantages except for the large sunlight area. However, the grapes and honeydew melons are pretty good. Phoenix Ting became more and more excited. How about it? Do you want to go or not? Let's go together. Yushan province is too far away from here, Galen said at a loss. It takes a week to get there by train, and it takes half a month to get there. What are you afraid of? We have plenty of time anyway. Feinstein waved her hand to show that she didn't care. Garen thought for a moment and said, let's see, let's make a decision later. I'm starting school soon and I can't make it in time. There are also a lot of things to deal with. By the way, Feeny, don't you have something to do at home? How can you squeeze in so much? How long do you want to go out and play? It's not bad. Feinstein suddenly remembered something, and the excitement on her face calmed down slightly. By the way, I also have some things to deal with. It might take a month to get back and forth. Well, let's schedule it for the next holiday. Okay, Garen nodded cheerfully. The two of them got together and studied the contents of the book again, and they were very interested. It was not until the clock on the wall made a clanging sound that they stopped with unfinished content. It's almost noon. I have to go have lunch. I have something to do in the afternoon. Garen stood up straight and breathed a sigh of relief. What's the matter? What's the matter? You're still so busy now that you're on holiday, aren't you tired? Feinstein got down from the chair, her legs seemed to be numb, and she couldn't stand still, so she sat back. Garen shrugged innocently, you bumped into it yourself, I couldn't control it, he whispered back. Go to hell. Feinstein kicked Garen in the calf and left angrily with a pink face. Garen helplessly glanced at the white and grey footprints on his pants. To him, this kick didn't even feel like a tickle, but to ordinary people, it would definitely turn their bones blue. After all, it was kicked with the tip of a leather boot. Forget it, I have to go to the old man's place in the afternoon. As expected, Yinger is still kind to me. She doesn't even dare to hit her hard. He wiped the dust off his trousers, and when he walked out of the underground library, he could no longer see Feeney's shadow. After taking out his card to register and leave, he stopped a carriage and rushed home. Sitting in the car, Garen closed his eyes slightly to rest and check his current attributes. This was something he did every day. Strength 2.22. Agile 1.10. Physical fitness 1.87. Intelligence 1.50. Potential 258%. Bayun secret technique, Dachin, level 4. Explosive punch, intermediate. Bayun's fighting skills, intermediate. The power has increased a little bit, which is better than nothing. It's just that I don't know how to use the potential points I have accumulated. Garen frowned and thought. I have been increasing my strength before, but I have upgraded the bursting fist to the intermediate level. With strong defense and single attack power, I can indeed be invincible for a short time. But it is troublesome when encountering a fast opponent. In terms of body, in terms of attributes and the fighting skills I have mastered, I am already considered a barely good fighting master. It may be a lot worse than my second senior brother and senior sister, but it is still superior to ordinary people and ordinary warriors. But what should I improve next? One item is a bit vague. His eyes fell on agility, and the agility of 1.10 has almost remained unchanged. I remember what senior sister said the day before yesterday. A real master must not have obvious flaws. Even if he does, he must know how to make up for them. Now my speed should be regarded as my obvious shortcoming. It seems that my agility must also be improved now. Schedule. He analyzed it and his eyes finally fell on agility. A few seconds later, the agility number suddenly jumped, from 1.10 to only 1.20. And suddenly, the power column on one side suddenly jumped from 2.22 to 2.42. Garin was slightly stunned. Looking at the potential value, he found that 100% of the potential accumulated over the past few weeks had been used, with 158% left. How can increasing agility increase strength? He was speechless. Could it be that, Garin suddenly thought of a possibility. If you want to increase the speed while maintaining the same strength, then the power that bursts out in an instant will definitely be much stronger than before. The sum of strength and speed is the real explosive power and lethality. This attribute should be calculated like this. This way, based on the stronger the strength, as long as you add a little speed, it is equivalent to multiplication, and the explosive power generated will definitely be much stronger than the original. He noticed that after the agility was improved, there was an extra symbol behind it. If you look carefully, the meaning of the symbols will naturally flow into your mind. The difference in strength and agility is too large, and there will be a linkage effect initially, and then it will slowly decay. Garin looked at several other attributes. If this is the case, is it best to add points evenly? Otherwise, the body will be too extreme on one side, which will burden other aspects and eventually lead to stagnation. There were still a few attributes left, but Garin did not use them rashly, because the potential of the black jade plate had gradually weakened. There were fewer attribute points than he expected, and the potential was being released at a slower and slower rate. It was estimated that there would be another. It was almost absorbed in 1 or 2 points. Sitting on the carriage, he slowly took out the black jade plaque from his trouser pocket. This antique, which looked like an iron plaque, was flowing out of potential as thin as a hair. Gently caressing this inconspicuous rectangular iron plate, I felt the uneven carved patterns and words on it. After absorbing it, you can sell it directly through the company or the golden ring. You can get a lot of money to collect the doomed antiques in the future. Feeling the subtle changes in his body due to the improvement in attributes, Garin moved for a while. Regarding the body, I won't go to the old man's place for the time being. In the afternoon, I will go to the martial arts gym to adapt to my physical fitness. In case I don't adapt to it after doing it, it will be troublesome. I have been going to the martial arts gym to train intermittently for so long. When I saw the teacher this afternoon, I guess I was going to be. I'll train you. He showed a hint of helplessness. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 67. Burnington Street in the afternoon. The sky was covered with white clouds, without any sunlight shining down, and it was slightly dark. In the Dolphin Antique Shop, old man Gaywo sat lazily behind the table in front of the bookshelf, tilting his head and half asleep, as if he was dozing off. Suddenly there was a familiar sound of footsteps outside the door. Galen, the old man opened one eye and asked weakly. "What time is it now? I thought you weren't coming." He pointed to a white amphory beside the table. "This is your task this afternoon. Take it and take a closer look. Give it to me when you're done. Just identify the content." Garin walked in the door wearing a red sportswear. Looking at the old man's lazy look, he shook his head speechlessly. Without speaking, he just walked over silently, holding the amphora on the table. Suddenly, he flicked his finger and shot out a black line. Laugh. The black line drew an arc like a flying insect and pierced the center of old Gaywo's eyebrows like lightning. Well. The old man had no time to avoid it, so he just tilted his head slightly. Unexpectedly, the black line actually went down, pierced into his left shoulder, and stopped immediately. It was a thin black needle. "Garin, what are you doing?" The old man stood up from the chair, took 2 steps back, and pulled out the needle with a sneer, a look of shock and anger on his face. Jiao Lung had a look of astonishment on his face, and suddenly his face turned painful. He staggered back 2 steps, and a mouthful of blood spurted out from his mouth. His face turned pale. How are you? Old man Gaywo was startled, and he quickly walked around the table and rushed over to support Garen. His movements were completely unlike that of an old man who was frail and frail. My head hurts so much, Garen whispered with pain on his face. Damn it! It must be those guys. How dare they, Chi! Gaywo's words stopped suddenly, and he stood beside Garen with his whole body trembling slightly. He lowered his head and looked at the black dagger pierced into his abdomen. You! Garen sneered, scoffed and pulled out the dagger, twirled it in his hand and stepped back. He just stood there and did not continue to attack. If I hadn't pretended to be that boy, I probably wouldn't have been able to deceive you. He pinched the left side of his cheek and gently peeled off a layer of the human skin mask, revealing a handsome and cold man's face underneath. Gaywo. Long time no see. It's you, Xian Flan. Old man Gaywo took 2 steps back, covering his lower abdomen with his hand, with a complicated expression on his face. Tell me where the thing is, Fairy Frank said coldly. Things. Haha, old man Gaywo showed a smile on his face. You haven't given up yet. Silfran smiled. I know you are strong, but you can no longer escape after being hit by my Yin Tuo needle. Come on, give me the thing. He slowly walked towards Gaywo. Old man Gaywo suddenly chuckled. You forgot again. No matter how many times I fight, you will never be my opponent. Then give it a try, Xian Flan sneered. Call. After Galen took a shower, he threw his wet hair on his single bed and took a deep breath. The smell he was most familiar with was on the quilt. So tired, he murmured softly. I went to the martial arts school in the afternoon. I was grabbed by the master and beaten wildly. After I came back from the lesson, my parents grabbed me and complained about the education. Fortunately, Yinger came back in time to save the siege, otherwise it would have been even worse. The light in the bedroom was quiet orange, dyeing Garen's white pajamas a light yellow color. The sky outside the window gradually darkened, and it was almost night. Her parents and Yinger had just gone out for a walk and thought they needed to digest after eating. Garen was too tired, so he stayed at home to rest. He lay on the bed, pulled out the small black jade plate, and carefully rubbed the rough surface. Click. Suddenly the door was pushed open. Brother, what are you doing with the door locked? You're being sneaky. Yinger walked in with a cup of boiled water. Garen hurriedly put away the black jade plate. Can you please knock on the door when you come in? He turned over and sat up and asked angrily. Why are you knocking on the door? Can I catch you doing bad things if you knock on the door? Yinger looked like she had just taken a shower, and her skin was pink all over. Wearing white short-sleeved shorts, revealing a pair of slender white thighs. Standing at the door, his legs were exactly parallel to Garen's eyes. Didn't you go for a walk with your parents? Why are you back? Garen unconsciously avoided the gaze that fell on his sister's lap. I didn't go out at all, I just pretended to say this to deceive you, but I didn't expect there was a problem. Yinger sneered a few times. If you don't want your parents to know about your bad things, you must agree to a condition. Conditions? What do I have to be afraid of? Garen pretended to be tough. He had nothing to hide, and now he just wanted to tease his sister. What conditions are you talking about? Yinger came over and stood in front of Jia Long, with one hand on her hip in a condescending manner. The conditions are actually very simple, she snorted and sneered. That's it? Boom. Suddenly there was a muffled sound, followed by a violent vibration. The entire building began to shake violently, and a thin, low humming sound came from far to near, reaching Garen's ears, and he felt faintly numb. I've been lucky lately, he chuckled softly. After gathering his thoughts, he stood up and sat down at his desk, and began to review the appraisal knowledge he had learned. Beside a forest on the outskirts of Huaishan City, Old man Gaywo stood in front of the burning woods with his belly covered, quietly looking at the scarlet flames inside. The red firelight illuminated his face. If the book was still there, maybe I would still be a little wary. But now a red figure slowly walked out of the woods. It was the fairy Fran who appeared earlier. There was a bloody cut on the left side of his face, and blood was slowly oozing out. Gaywo, you have become immortal and can only rely on these external objects. Even if there is no need for sustenance, cough Gaywo suddenly coughed, and the hand covering his abdomen began to slowly seep blood between his fingers. Without power, even the book is lost, the once genius has now fallen into this miserable state, Xianflan said loudly with his hands wide open. It's so sad. He used a tone similar to singing. Whispered. When you extract your power, who do you want to give it to? To the boy next to you. It's useless. He doesn't have this talent. He is destined to be immortal. Just time can kill him easily. No matter who I give it to, it is my business. As for that book, I have sent it to a place far, far away. A place you will never find. Old man Gaywo breathed and whispered. Laugh it out. We have lived together for so many years, brother, do you really think I don't know that you gave it to that old woman? Xianflan smiled. Gaywo's face changed slightly, and he suddenly reacted, but it was too late. Sure enough. Haha, Xianflan laughed, I was just testing it out, but I didn't expect you to still be so slow to react after so many years. He looked at Gaywo in front of him, a trace of sadness flashed in his eyes. You have placed all your life and strength on others, and you will still be like this even until you die. Do you think I can't see that you don't have many days to live? Put everything you have into the ritual. This kind of only you can do it. I was already a useless person. I just wanted to leave some traces of myself in this world. Ge Guo showed a smile that was uglier than bitter. Bang! He suddenly seemed to be hit by something invisible. He flew out, rolled on the ground and hit a tree stump. Well, old man Gaywo covered his mouth tightly, big mouthfuls of blood seeping out from between his fingers and dripping on the muddy ground. Why are you always so stupid? Why? Ah! Xianflan rushed over quickly and kicked old Gaywo hard in the stomach. Bang bang bang. Xianflan kicked her hard, each time harder than the last. The banging sound was like hitting a leather sack, and it was also very clear next to the burning woods. Traces, he finally stopped, a trash like you still wants to leave traces in this world? Dream on, he didn't know when his expression became extremely ferocious. I've decided, I'm going to kill all the traces you left. All, he growled, as if he was hysterical. His face was distorted and full of veins. Snapped. Suddenly a hand grabbed his boots, and old man Gaywo raised his head desperately. His face was covered with blood, and he was completely speechless. Mouthfuls of sticky blood kept pouring out of his mouth. He just stared at him with his mouth open, but made no sound. You want me not to do anything, right? Xianflan stopped, his expression instantly returned to calm, and he slowly revealed a strange smile. Are you begging me? You are begging me, right? Old man Gaywo's pupils were slightly dilated, his vision was blurred and he couldn't see clearly at all. He just clung to Xianflan's boots. Are you really begging me? Xianflan smiled more and more wildly. If you're really begging me, then lick my boots clean. Snapped. He stepped on the old man's face. Lick it, the former genius, my dear brother, lick it. His face became ferocious again. The boots stamped hard on the old man's face, again and again. Suddenly his expression hardened. The old man Gaywo under his feet was actually slowly sticking out his tongue to lick the soles of his boots. An inexplicable emotion suddenly filled Xianfran's chest. He raised his head and suddenly felt sour. It was my fault. When, Nian? The old man's voice came intermittently from beneath his feet. Forgive me. The old man tilted his head, and the last color in his eyes completely disappeared. Xianflan did not answer, and lowered his head to look at the body on the ground. The cold wind made the woods on one side rustle, and the fire gradually became smaller. Elder brother. He knelt down and stayed next to the body, saying nothing. At the same time, Galen was sitting at his desk at home and suddenly felt a heat in his chest. He pulled out a necklace from his collar in confusion. Hanging on it was the book necklace that old man Ge Guo had given him. What's going on? He looked left and right, but found no sign. The necklace was still warm. Without thinking any more, he stuffed the necklace into his chest again and continued to study the identification cases on the table. The moment he tucked it back into his collar, a line of text slowly appeared on the surface of the necklace book. Iangalaya, the Third Life Ritual Sanctuary. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 68. Bang bang bang. Galen hammered on the door of the antique shop. Old man, open the door. In the early morning, the streets were deserted except for a few workers in blue uniforms who were working the morning shift passing by. When they saw Garen's somewhat exaggerated door hammering action, they only took a few curious glances. Old man. You haven't gotten up yet, Garen shouted impatiently. He went to bed early last night and left several complicated questions to ask early in the morning before going to the Wushu Association to evaluate his rank. After knocking for a long time, no one opened the door. Garen frowned. Did he go out? He thought for a moment, looked around to see if there was no one around, then simply stood up on tiptoes, reached out and touched the window bar above the crack of the door, and unexpectedly took out a blue key. Sure enough, it's still here. Garen smiled and inserted the key into the keyhole, then opened the door with a click. Squeak. The door slowly opened inward, and it was quiet inside. All the floors were replaced with black carpets, and some oil paintings and strange objects were neatly hung on the walls. It looks colorful, with gold and silver being the most numerous, covering most of the wall. Garen closed the door with his backhand, walked to the wall and touched all the new things one by one. Soon, he shook his head in disappointment, not finding anything with potential, and turned and walked towards the inner room of the antique shop. Opening the black door curtain, it was so dark that nothing could be seen clearly. Garen carefully lit the oil lamp on the wall on the right. Old man? You're not sick, are you? He frowned and looked at the bed in the inner room. It was neatly arranged and the quilt was folded into a square shape. There was no trace of having slept on it. Garen walked to the bed and put his hand under the quilt. It was cold inside and there was no warmth at all. No one slept last night. Did they go out last night? He vaguely felt something was wrong. He turned back to the main part of the store and sat down where the old man usually sat. Garen suddenly saw a white narrow-necked amphory placed on the table. There was still a little dark red on the bottle, a solidified dark red. He narrowed his eyes, gently picked up the bottle, dipped his finger into the dark red and put it under his nose to smell it. The smell of blood. He stood up slowly, his expression completely darkened. I hope it's not the old man's blood. Garen began to slowly check the store, and within a few minutes, he found a few drops of dried blood again in the middle of the store, on the black carpet in front of the table. Squatting beside these drops of blood, Garen looked around, but no other blood stains appeared. Huh, he suddenly murmured, his eyes falling on the shadow on the left side of the table, where a white rectangular envelope lay quietly on the carpet. He walked over and picked up the envelope. On the surface of the envelope it says, "Little bastard Chi." The black handwriting looks a bit sloppy, but it has a casual and free feeling. It's the old man's handwriting. Garen frowned and tore open the envelope, gently shook out the letter paper from the inside, and unfolded it with a clatter. The letter paper is filled with sparse handwriting. I went on a trip, boy, don't come to me or try to contact me, I'm doing fine. An old friend invited me over to have a nice and spicy drink. I heard that there were beautiful women accompanying me to drink and warm the bed. Ha ha ha, Don't envy me too much, I probably won't come back again in the future. This store is open just for fun, so I'll leave it all to you. It's up to you to decide what to do with it. Oh, right. The appraisal knowledge I taught you is a rare experience. General appraisers don't have this opportunity. You have to study hard on your own, and don't let me, old man, get the wrong impression. After Garin read the letter, the gloominess on his face did not change at all, but instead deepened. Is this old man kidding me? He walked to the table with the letter and found a match from the drawer to light the kerosene lamp on the table. Then hang the letter paper over the flame and slowly move it to smoke. Slowly, new lines of black characters gradually appeared on the back of the white letter paper. It wasn't until all the black words were revealed that Garin took the letter back and read it again. Garin, if you are serious, you should be able to see the true content of this letter. Maybe I have already left by this time. To be honest, you really look a lot like me when I was young. Although your talents are vastly different, your personality is almost exactly the same as mine at the time. Okay, let's not say more. Keep the necklace I gave you carefully and don't lose it. It may be of great help to you at some point. Also, if, and I mean if, you notice anything wrong in the store, you have to leave immediately. If anyone finds you, don't mention my name, let alone know me. Remember, those people are not something you can fight against, or in other words, they are not something ordinary people can deal with. Don't call the police or ask other people for help. It's useless. It will only harm others. No one can be their opponent except those people themselves. It's a pity if you don't have that talent. The content of the letter stopped abruptly, as if it was unfinished. Garin held the letter and his breathing became slightly heavier. He actually felt that something might have happened to the old man. Those people? Old man, who are you talking about? His thoughts were mixed for a moment, and he stood there holding the letter and envelope. Click. Suddenly there was a small sound from the inner room of the shop. Who? Garin picked up the letter and rushed in with a few steps. A figure just walked out of the back door of the inner room. Hearing the shout, the man looked back at Garin, with a hint of surprise in his eyes. My lord is indeed right, that little guy is here again, the thin man suddenly shouted loudly. It seems that our visit was not in vain. Another voice came from outside the door. Kill him quickly and leave. I know, I'll take care of it. The thin man at the door chuckled twice, turned around and walked towards Garin. Boy, you're unlucky to meet me. He stretched out his index finger and pointed it at Galleon. Boom. An invisible force suddenly pressed down on Garin's body, like a ball of transparent glue, directly fixing him in place. What is this? Garin's expression changed. He wanted to raise his hand, but felt that his arm could not move at all. It was as if there were hard walls around him, and his whole body seemed to be embedded in the middle of the cement wall. Is this the talent? The old man said. Is this the so-called power of those people? Garin tried to move his whole body, but it was of no use. He stared at the man across from him and noticed that there was a faint black tattoo on the back of the man's right hand, which looked like a complex tattoo in the shape of a five-pointed star. Jemzawa, stop playing, finish your work and go back early. The man's voice came from outside the door again. Oh, I know, the thin man replied impatiently. He stretched out his index finger again and pointed it at Garin slowly. Click. A sound like breaking glass. The impatience on the man's face instantly solidified. He slowly lowered his head and saw a white arm firmly inserted into his chest. The young man who was immobilized just now was standing in front of him with a calm and cold expression. Bang! The man was instantly knocked back, smashed through the door panel and fell to the ground. He slid far away with a hiss and lost his breath. Garin slowly walked out of the back door, and in front of him was a small yard behind the store. There were 3 men in black standing sparsely in the yard. The 3 of them were staring blankly at the thin man who was knocked to the ground, seemingly unaware of what was going on. It's old man Gaywo. It's him. He's back, a man in black on the left suddenly shouted with a trembling voice. Shut up. That old immortal is dead. He will be killed by the adults himself, the leading man in black roared. Kill him and let's get out of here right now. I just want a peaceful life, why do you have to force me? Garen looked indifferent and looked at the people in front of him. His body slowly swelled, his muscles bulged, and his upper body doubled in size, like the terrifying demon king in mythology. What do you mean I don't have the talent in this area? It's really ridiculous. Boom. There was a loud noise, and he rushed forward. The ground shook violently, like thunder, and a small crater exploded. His whole body was like a Tyrannosaurus Rex that was hunting for prey, and he pounced on the three people in the yard with a powerful and terrifying sense of oppression. Disperse quickly. The three of them only had time to shout out one sentence before they heard two crisp pops. Their heads were grabbed by Garen's hands and squeezed gently. Countless red and white liquid exploded out with two pops. It splashed on the ground of most of the yard. The last person jumped up, and while rolling, he pulled out two daggers and stabbed Garen's neck diagonally. Bang! As if swatting a fly, Garen slapped the man hard, sending him and the dagger flying far away and hitting the courtyard wall. It's like a human-shaped mural that has been stuck on for a long time without slipping off. Galen blew out two thick breaths from his nose, strode over with bang bang, grabbed the man's hair with one hand, and lifted it up to hang in front of him. Boom! He punched the man in the abdomen, and another mouthful of blood spurted out, splattering Garen all over. You are really beaten. Without that transparent layer of strength, you are just as weak as ordinary people. Hey, this man was pulled by his hair and bleeding from all 7 holes, but he could still laugh out loud. You're done. Do you still have a sister, and parents? Hakuba. It's over. Haha, if it weren't for the adults' order, I should be enjoying that cute little girl. But Hakuba is more ruthless than me. He will hum your sister to death, hum your sister to death. Ha 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 ha, click. Garen's eyes were cold and he twisted the man's neck. You are not willing to be killed yourself and want to drag your companion into the water? Don't worry. I will let him accompany you in a moment. With a step of his foot, a small crater burst out in the ground again. Garen rushed out of the back door of the yard in a few steps, almost 3 to 4 meters in one step, and disappeared in the morning mist in a few steps. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 69. The white mist slowly filled the entire Huaishan city. The streets and alleys are filled with this smoky mist. Lamshu Street. In the light yellow buildings, a man in a white suit was walking slowly on the sidewalk, spinning a bunch of small keys on his fingers. It's a really nice mission to take a break and not have to be with those 3 idiots. You can also enjoy the extra little girl flavor. The man muttered something with a bright smile on his face. His eyes were fixed on a petite girl not far ahead. The girl was Yinger, who was out shopping. She was wearing a white t-shirt and low-waisted jeans. Her perky buttocks were perfectly wrapped and highlighted, her slender legs and unbearable waist. Although her face was not very beautiful. But this young and energetic body is exactly Hakuba's favorite type. Hakuba followed closely behind, his eyes falling on the girl's buttocks that were slightly deformed due to walking, and he couldn't help but swallowed quietly. If we go further forward and there are fewer people, we can start. He calculated the distance and became more and more impatient. After following for a while, Yinger in front turned right into a narrow alley humming a song. The white horse was immediately overjoyed and hurriedly followed up to speed up. He was becoming more and more impatient. A tampered white handkerchief quietly appeared on his hand. Bang bang bang. Suddenly, there was a sound of footsteps coming from the corner ahead, and three tall men slowly walked out of the alley. All three of them had large or small gold earrings hanging on their left ears. The three of them happened to be blocked by the white horse at the entrance of the alley. Get away, the handsome man in the lead lowered his head and looked gloomy, obviously feeling unhappy. This man was wearing a brown fur collar windbreaker, with his hands in his pockets. His dazzling red hair was like a flame in the white mist, with a faint sense of beating brightness. The gold ring on his ear clearly engraved a number, 6. Insignificant mortal, the originally smiling face in the white suit suddenly became depressed. How dare you speak to me in such a tone? The red-haired man was stunned, as if he didn't expect anyone to dare to talk to him like this. Suddenly he laughed in surprise. It's been a long time since I heard someone dare to speak to me like that. He stretched out his right hand in his pocket. It seems that you are one of the people following our expert's family. Just give him a meeting gift. It sounds loud, but mortals are just mortals after all. Bama sneered, stretched out his right hand and took off the black glove, revealing the black pentagram tattoo on the back of his hand. I'm going to dig out your eyes. As my latest collection. An inexplicable force began to flow and spin around him. I don't know whether to live or die. The red-haired man raised his hand, and the two people around him slowly backed away. Strangely, a blood-red scar slowly appeared under the man's right eye, like the eyeshadow of a woman's makeup, charming and sharp. Call. A breeze blew by, causing a few fallen leaves on the ground to roll. Garin ran quickly down the street, passing a few passers-by on the sidewalk from time to time. His clothes had been taken off and tucked under his arms, and they were stained red with blood. Damn it! Don't let anything happen. His face was cold, but his heart was getting more and more impatient. It took at least 20 or 30 minutes to walk from Burnington Street to Blue Tree Street, but it only took him 10 minutes to get home. It's a pity that my parents have gone out, and my sister Yinger is not here either. Garin quickly ran out of the house again and searched along the street. While running wildly, I was analyzing in my mind where my sister had gone. At this time, it's so early. Generally speaking, you should go to the vegetable market, or maybe the fruit shop. After hesitating for a moment, Garin decisively ran towards the street of the vegetable market. The scenery on both sides retreated rapidly, and only the street ahead was still clear to Garin's eyes. Turn around an intersection and go right. Run straight for hundreds of meters. Turn left again. Bang. Suddenly there was a muffled sound on the cold street ahead. In the white mist, a vague figure flew over, rolled several times on the ground, and stopped when it hit Garin's boots. Garin stopped and looked down at the man rolling over. It was almost impossible to see the true color of the dirty white suit, which was covered in gray and black stains. Only half of her originally neat hairstyle was still neat. The most important thing is that this man's arms showed an unnatural twist, and they were obviously broken. Suddenly Garin noticed that this man had a black pentagram tattoo on the back of his right hand. The same tattoo as those people just now. He bent down and grabbed the man's collar, lifting him up into the air. "Are you White Horse?" he asked in a deep voice. The sprint just now returned to normal after just adjusting his breathing slightly. "It's you." "Haha, I didn't expect that I would die at the hands of a mortal." Bamo laughed softly. Suddenly the sound stopped, his pupils were completely dilated, and there was no longer any breath. Garin shook him in shock, but suddenly saw a black blood vessel spreading out from the right side of Hakuba's neck and connecting to the black pentagram on the back of his right hand. Throwing the body away with a snap, Garin breathed a sigh of relief and took a few steps forward. The situation in front suddenly became clear from the fog. At the entrance of a narrow alley, three tall men with golden earrings sat on the ground with exhausted faces. One of the red-haired men had dark red blood flowing from his mouth and nose. Hearing the footsteps, the red-haired man raised his head and looked over. "It's you." He immediately relaxed. "Damn it, I thought there was another monster like that. Cursing fiercely, the man stood up reluctantly while holding onto the wall. I'm talking to experts. What kind of monster opponent did you provoke? You actually even released your Qigong. Fortunately, I arrived in time, otherwise your sister would be really in danger. Garen himself didn't know what was going on, so he just shook his head silently. He noticed that the golden ring on the other's ear was engraved with the number 6. Sixth golden ring, I owe you. Once he looked at the other two people. How are they? Two temporary subordinates, who practice hard Qigong, help me block it? It seems that it is not possible. The red-haired man shook his head. I will properly handle their family affairs. After saying that, he suddenly stared hard. With galleons. I have shouldered such a big responsibility for you. Don't tell me that you won't join the Golden Circle? Otherwise, don't blame me for falling out. Garen was speechless and could only smile bitterly. Here, the red-haired man threw a small golden ring directly to Garen. Garen caught it accurately and looked at it. It was a golden earring engraved with the number 9. It was only the size of a fingernail and looked very delicate. Is it a temporary replacement for the 9th golden ring? It's not temporary. Didn't you almost kill the 10th golden ring? This ranking is natural. The 6th snorted and sneered. Do you all know this? Garen was stunned. The characteristics of your technique are too obvious, including your whereabouts. Garen shrugged speechlessly. Okay, go check on your sister quickly. I have to ask someone to take care of this place. The red-haired man wiped the blood from his mouth and nose and walked towards the dead bodies. Jialong walked faster along the alley. This was the path that his sister Ying'er walked most often. Before he ran far, Ying'er's back finally appeared in Jialong's field of vision on the street outside the alley ahead. He rushed out and hugged his sister in front of him. Ying'er. Ying'er suddenly felt a familiar smell and hugged herself. She was holding the tomatoes and potatoes she had just bought in her hand, and was so frightened that she almost dropped them all to the ground. Brother! What are you doing? Are you ashamed of yourself? On the street, she wanted to break free, but found that the strength gap was a bit far behind. After twisting his body a few times, he still had no choice, so he had no choice but to let Garen hug him tightly. Ying'er. It's great that you're okay. Garen hugged his sister, who was half a head shorter than him, tightly. Is everything okay? Ying'er was hugged from behind. She already felt extremely embarrassed. Let go. Otherwise, I'll fall out. Okay, let me go. Garen also felt something was wrong, so he quickly let go and breathed a sigh of relief. There were not many passers-by around, and most of them just glanced at the two of them ambiguously, apparently misunderstanding that they were a couple. Where are your parents? Garen asked in a low voice, not paying attention to the surrounding eyes. I'm going to buy charcoal and firewood. It's almost winter. I have to prepare these things, otherwise it will be troublesome when it gets cold. Ying'er picked up the fruits and vegetables on her hand. It's your turn to carry this, because you suddenly scared me just now. Punishment, she forced the bag directly onto Garen. Okay, Garen relaxed and suddenly felt much better. I have to continue shopping for groceries. Follow me and don't get lost. Ying'er turned around and continued walking forward, heading towards the sidewalk not far away, where there were many kinds of goods on both sides of the road. There is a vegetable stall, and some ants and young women who got up early are already wandering around there to choose. Garen held the dish in one hand and gently reached into his pocket with the other hand to pinch the golden earring. The favor I owe Jin Huan is a bit big this time. But what if, at least the safety of my family is guaranteed. If Jin Huan's power background is really the same as what Eighth said. If true, adding the golden ring there would be a good thing for Garen no matter how you look at it. It's just that you need to be more careful when facing the detectives in the tower in the future. If you are not careful, the guy may discover the secret of your identity. Taking a deep breath, Garen simply didn't bother to think about these things. When he returned to the old man's accident, his mood suddenly became sad and heavy. Judging from the looks of the three people just now, the old man should have been a very powerful person. He could scare people just by saying his name. Then I don't know who the adult among the three people is. But I don't know who he is. A hint of coldness flashed in Garen's eyes. No matter who harmed you, I will definitely avenge you. Suddenly, a sweet and fishy feeling rushed up in his chest. Garen quickly covered his mouth and swallowed hard. His entire throat was filled with a thick smell of blood. It was an internal injury caused by the three men in black who had just been killed in a head-on attack. After that, they ran out without much treatment and persisted for more than 10 minutes before getting a rest. If Garen hadn't been physically strong, another secret warrior would have been lying on the ground unable to move. That kind of ability is very similar to telekinesis. It's very powerful. If you don't use pure power to break it, it will be difficult for other types of warriors to deal with it. Maybe you can find some clues from the corpse. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 70. Suppressing the injury on his chest, Garen tried his best to appear as normal as usual. It seems that I have to go to the martial arts school to check with the master. I'll have dinner at the martial arts studio later, so you don't have to worry about me. I'll take the food home first. You're going to the martial arts gym again. It's rare for mom and dad to have free time. Yinger pouted her mouth slightly and said dissatisfiedly. It's okay. My parents heard that work has gradually become easier recently, and we will spend more and more time together in the future. Garen rubbed his sister's hair and smiled. He secretly got rid of his master and adjusted his parents' jobs, and it seemed to be working. But what puzzled him was that his uncle could do this easily, but why he never did this. After putting the dishes back home, Garen went downstairs and headed straight for the martial arts school. The city seems to be undergoing major renovations recently. Some places have begun to be demolished and rebuilt. Workers and ox carts pulling construction materials are everywhere. The usually clean streets in the city center have become a bit dirty. While walking quickly on the sidewalk, Garen kept thinking about the three people he met earlier, and he felt more and more suspicious. If the talent that the old man once told me refers to the invisible force field, then the key to everything lies in that book. That book that I read back then, Garen said in his eyes. A flash of light flashed. It was after I read the book that the old man showed a disappointed look and said that I didn't have the talent in this area, and he never saw the book again. Maybe that would be the key clue. Garen was walking slowly on the street. Just after he turned a corner, a cookie cart slowly came towards him. The old man pushing the cart passed him with a smile and quietly stuffed him with a cookie. Note. Garen was stunned for a moment and looked down at the note. There is a golden ring drawn on it, with a line of words underneath. There is something important at number 28, Yangliu Street, number 3 Shikiao. Putting away the note, Garen took a deep breath, turned a corner and walked towards the zebra crossing in the middle of the road. East of Huaishan. A pale yellow river flows slowly through the city. It was like a yellow ribbon in the entire variegated urban area, dirty as if it hadn't been washed for a long time. On both sides of the river are rows of light yellow square houses, like two rows of unevenly stacked building blocks, of varying heights and somewhat mottled. You can vaguely see figures walking past the windows of the houses from time to time. There are gray-yellow stone bridges at regular intervals on the river, and vehicles and pedestrians are constantly flowing on the bridge. On a stone bridge farthest from the city, there is a silver-black bust sculpture in the middle. The sculpture is more than 3 meters high. It is a statue of a bearded man surrounded by flowers. The text on the front of the statue introduces that in front of the bronze medal stands a fair-skinned man wearing a plaid sweater. The man looks to be no more than 30 or 40 years old, with brown eyes, a typical aquiline nose, and short gray hair, giving people a sinister and silent look. A feeling of. Not far away from the bridge on the left, a strong young man with short purple-black hair walked slowly towards the side. The man was wearing ordinary black sportswear. Although the clothes were loose, they still couldn't hide his muscle outline, and the whole clothes it's bulging. The faint sunlight shone down and shone on the skin of his bare arms, giving off a faint layer of white fluorescence, as if a layer of white ash had been smeared on his body. As the man walked past the black statue, he glanced at the hooked nose standing next to the bronze medal. The man calmly waved his right hand, revealing a golden earring in his hand. Lord Ninth. Garen frowned and looked at the hook-nosed man in front of him. Suddenly he remembered that he had just taken over the position of the 9th golden ring, and he was relieved. What's up? The 6th master is studying the corpses of those people. He thought you might be interested and asked me to come and inform you, the hook-nosed man answered respectfully. The sound was very low, just enough for the two of them to hear. Take me with you, corpse. Garen's face darkened and he whispered. Okay, please follow me. Hook-Nose turned around and strode towards the other end of the stone bridge, Garen following closely. After crossing the stone bridge, the urban atmosphere on the street became much lighter. There were very few cars, mostly ox carts and horse-drawn carriages. From time to time, you could see lumps of black cow dung on the roadside. The two quickly crossed two streets and entered a path with a green hill on one side. A black wall was built on the other side of the path to separate the road from the surrounding residential buildings. The entire road has entered the outskirts of the city, and the sound of crickets can still be heard faintly on the hill on the left. Garen walked quickly forward with the hooked nose, looking around from time to time. Quack! There was a sound of ducks quacking in front of me, and when I turned a corner, I saw a group of white-haired ducks coming towards me on the grass on the path ahead, swaying and quacking. An old farmer wearing a yellow straw hat was driving leisurely with a branch in his hand. The two of them avoided it a little and continued walking forward. Soon they saw a spacious flat yellow land at the end of the path in front of them, like a small playground. Behind the open space, there was a light yellow double-story small building. The building stands surrounded by green trees. The sun shines down, and most of the small building is covered in the shade of the trees. That's it. Hook-Nosed walked to the entrance of the plain and stopped. This is one of our tentative strongholds in Huaishan. Please come in, the 6th and 7th adults are waiting for you above. Garen glanced at him, said nothing, and strode forward towards the small building. A dark-haired woman walked out of a room on the 2nd floor. The woman was tall and had long hair tied into a ponytail. She wore a tight leather jacket that showed off her curvy figure. The most eye-catching thing is her eyes, which are actually dark purple. The woman has fair skin and delicate facial features, but her eyes give people a cold feeling. She seemed to see Garen below, her eyes narrowed, and then she turned around and walked into the room with a cold snort. Garen smiled silently. The 10th golden ring is also there. It seems that he recognized me. He shook his head, lowered his head and strode into the small building. Quickly go up the stairs, and there is already a dark-skinned strong man standing on the right side of the 2nd floor. Please go this way. According to the rules, please wear the ring that represents you, the strong man reminded in a low voice. Garen nodded, took out the gold ring from his pocket, pinched his earlobe, hesitated for a moment, and put it on the little finger of his left hand. The gold ring is just the right size. After turning the earring and bringing the number side to the top, Garen strode into the room on the right. There is only one room on the right side of the stairs on the entire 2nd floor. The room is very spacious. A square table, two bookshelves side by side, and several high-backed chairs. They are all made of red and black wood, and you can smell a faint and elegant fragrance. There were two people standing in front of the bookshelf, a man and a woman. The woman was the 10th golden ring with black hair and purple eyes, and the man was a blonde one-eyed dragon. The two of them were leaning against the bookshelf and seemed to be chatting. At the table, The red-haired sixth golden ring was playing cards with a pale man wearing a black cloak. "Here you come. Everyone is here now." The sixth golden ring stood up with a smile and dropped the cards in his hand. "Eighth, sorry, I won again." "Shit," the eighth golden ring cursed, stood up and looked at Garen at the door. "You're here? A little late." Garen nodded. "I'm not very familiar with the road, I'm sorry." It was also the eighth person who invited him to join the Golden Circle, so the two of them were relatively familiar with each other. He walked directly to number 8, pulled out a chair and stood leaning against him. "What's the matter with calling me here suddenly?" The sixth golden ring smiled and did not answer him directly, but clapped his hands gently. "Okay everyone is here. It's rare that so many of us have gathered together for Yinsha Castle this time. From me to 10th, 5 of the top 10 are here. This is what we have done over the years. What a rare situation." "Stop talking nonsense," the purple-eyed woman with the 10th golden ring interrupted him rudely. "We each have our own areas of responsibility, and we are not here to listen to you waste your time here." Okay, sixth scratched his head. "First, let's introduce our new member, 9th. Bang bang bang. Sparse applause. Garen shrugged. "I don't know anything yet." "This is for you." 8th handed over a stack of white paper information. "You can't take it out after watching it. Someone will burn it directly." Garen took it and looked at it. The information is all about a general introduction to the Golden Ring. After casually flipping through the information, Garen probably had a certain understanding of the Golden Circle organization. The entire Jinhuan is a large-scale cultural relics, antique, and jewelry selling group. Through the relationship network of the top 10 Jinhuan, different antique information is gathered. Once a buyer has a demand and offers a price, then people in the organization will directly take action, or stealing, or robbing, is sure to get something. Most of the top 10 people in charge of the Golden Circle are not directly affiliated with each other, but are just parallel peers. Each has its own network and power, and they are only united because of their own interests. Each of the top 10 gold rings is responsible for a regional management, including the source of antique information and contacts with sellers. To obtain antiques, you can collect and buy them yourself, or you can obtain them from other areas within the organization. It is considered an interest group network. While Garen was checking the information, the sixth golden ring continued to speak. "In recent years, customers' demand for doomed antiques has been increasing, so 9th joined us as an appraisal expert. He has a special talent, that is, he can reliably identify the authenticity of doomed antiques. So this is my reasons for agreeing to admit him. And the 9th is also a secret warrior. In terms of level, he should be almost E-level." The 8th continued. "Previously, we have decided to join the 9th with the advantage of 3 votes. Now let's end this matter. 6th, let's get down to business." "Okay." The 6th nodded, glanced at the 10th golden ring who spat with disdain, and said with a smile, "Our golden ring senior management occasionally changes, just like the 7th didn't just join. Aren't we here soon? It's only been 2 years. Okay, let's get down to business." His expression gradually became serious.